Okay, today we have on Matt Kruger, who flew all the way here from Iowa today. He had a very eventful flight on the way here. We didn't think he was going to be able to make it. You got what happened? You were on the plane, you were hooked to Wi-Fi, and they told you.
Yeah. So I was just sitting down actually in Des Moines, and I get the notification that my flight from Dallas to Houston was canceled, and they're like, choose a different flight, get you rescheduled, and the next available flight was 7:04 a.m. tomorrow morning. And I'm like, that's not gonna happen. So it's like, I guess I'll just be driving the rest of the way.
I thought you were on the flight when you got the notification.
I was on the first flight, not the flight that was canceled. No, thankfully, but.
Yeah, I was glad we didn't have to go have somebody come drive up there 3 hours to come pick you up. So thank you so much for being here. I know this was a real trek to get here today.
Yeah,
but
happy to be here.
We found you on TikTok and on Instagram recently. I don't want to say it wrong. Was it rental?
Rental cash flow, yes.
Rental.cashflow?
Rental.cashflow.
And that both on TikTok and Instagram?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
Awesome. And we thought your story was really neat. We loved that you were very young when you took this leap of faith. 21 years old, you bought your first investment property.
Yep.
And then now you're 30 is what I'm gathering.
Yeah.
I know, men never tell their age.
Yep.
And now you have a portfolio with $3 million worth of short-term rentals. So we want to hear your story. We want to hear how you got started. But we'll start with, what are you doing today? Tell us about your business today.
So our business today, honestly, has been really family focused. We have prioritized, so I've got a 7-year-old, now a 6-year-old daughter, so 2 daughters, and then 2 sons, 3-year-old and almost 1-year-old. And our focus leading up to me leaving my 9-to-5 job, finally escaping that rat race, was to work as little as possible and prioritize, being with the kids and traveling and, finding that financial freedom, right? So that was kind of what our goal was, and I feel like we've accomplished that. Typically, we spend anywhere from 2 to 4 hours per week managing our business. I use different software stacks. So I've got Price Labs for dynamic pricing for our short-term rentals. I use Hospitable, which they're a PMS, so it's property management software. They automate guest messaging, sync up our calendars, assign cleaning schedules, all of that. So most of our business with our short-term rentals is automated. We've got 3 short-term rentals now. We just opened up our 3rd one, and we've got 7 long-term rentals. And
okay.
And yeah, that's what we do. So
well, I know that doing the automation is the way to go with all business. Sean started recently investing, and they buy old Kmart's and Walmart's. His friends Mike and Bo, which we just did a podcast with them, and they have everything automated, so you don't really have to have the staff, because that's the hardest part of owning a business.
We do a lot of indoor storage, and so the indoor storage is all automated. So if somebody, you get a code, you open the gate, you go in there, you get your lock code, and then if they don't pay, somebody's, it just locks them out. And so super cool.
That's cool.
So automating stuff is the only way to scale your business.
So that's what you do with all of your Airbnbs. You don't have to go meet anybody there. You don't have to have staff members go do it. I feel like with every Airbnb I've done, everything's always been automated with a lockbox.
Yeah, any short-term rental. See, we don't call them Airbnbs. It's Airbnb is the platform. That's like the dirty word for short-term rental. Is vacation rental or short-term rental, because my goal is to create my own business, not to support Airbnb. Yeah. But Airbnb does bring in 80 to 85% of our bookings right now. But we're trying to create our own business outside of that. That way we have more control. But
do you have a separate website then that you can host your properties from? Yeah. And how do you market that website?
Social media. So we have an Instagram page, a Facebook page, and I just post consistently. And then I'll share it through my personal channels as well. So we see a lot come through there. And then we also have, I would say our main target is repeat guests. So Airbnb may bring them in, but our goal is to not have them ever rebook with Airbnb. It would be to have them rebook direct. So we've got
Airbnb is not listening.
Yeah. So they don't know who I am. Maybe not. Apparently they do have social media though, because they've seen some of my content and reached out about it before. So that was interesting. But
so what percent does an Airbnb type platform take for booking the clients for you?
I really should know this because we use them for everything. It's what is
ballpark.
I want to say it's a 6% fee from the guests, and it's a 3% fee from the host.
That's really not that bad. I was expecting closer to 30 or 40%.
No. But yeah, so they have their guest service fee. But I mean, realistically, that fee can be a couple $100 depending on how big the booking is though for the guests. So if they book with us direct, they could save hundreds of dollars by doing that. So
Well, let's start all the way back. I want to rewind it back to, I feel like 21 years old, you said, was when you bought your first property. Mm-hmm. I know people are going to ask, what were you doing? You said you worked a retail type job. What were you doing before you started this?
So kind of bringing you back to the beginning of all of this. So just like for context leading up to it, I grew up in a conservative household. My dad is an IT guy. My mom stayed at home. We were actually homeschooled. I didn't turn out to be that awkward homeschool kid. I mean, I'm still awkward, but
that's why you
not
so
as bad
much.
Yeah. Maybe that's why I talk. Yeah, I finally got out of there. Yeah. So I'm just going to go stand over in the corner for a while and get myself together. No, but I had the desire to be a youth pastor. That's what I wanted to do. So I went to school to get a degree in youth pastoral. I graduated and I was looking for a job, just could not find what I wanted to do that actually paid much of anything at all, or was local. So I got a job as a cell phone rep at a Sprint store. And
how old were you? That was your first job? 18?
I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 19 when I got that job. I worked as a janitor through school, so I graduated debt free. But yeah, so $8 an hour plus commission. It was.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, it was not great, and the commission was terrible. It was a very slow store. So, in 2014, I made, it was like $35,000. Yeah, so that was my. Probably 2014 and 2015. Yeah,
probably working a ton of hours too, right?
Yeah, it was 40 hours, 45 hours. So yeah, but it was. But I enjoyed it, and that's really when I got like my first. That was my first sales job, which some people don't view it that way, but like for me, it was every customer was an opportunity to sell them something that they didn't know that they needed ahead of time, and I did really, really well. Within a year and a half, I was a district manager for them, running 5 stores and 25 employees, and loving it. But at that time when I was a rep, is when my wife and I met. We met in, it was like June, and we got married in November. So It was pretty fast. Yeah, we moved quick, but we knew. And we're going to celebrate 10 years this year together. So
awesome.
But yeah, so we moved into an apartment together. It was like $720 a month for rent. Out in Des Moines, Iowa.
I was about they don't have them kind of prices around here in Houston.
Don't. Yeah, they don't.
So I was like, what does an apartment cost these days? I'm like, $2,500, $3,000 a month. He's like, what? I can't believe they cost that much. I'm like, yep.
It was a 2-bed, 1-bath hole in the wall. But I'm working a dead end job. She was a veterinary technician, and she was making about the same, like $14 an hour. So her parents did real estate investing, and they were kind of our main influence for getting into it because. They've never been the type of people to really push anything on other people. So they were never, you guys need to do this or whatever. It was more like just kind of show us what they were doing. When I met her, he retired from his job at 45. He was a meat cutter at a grocery store.
Wow.
And they were spending a month every year down on Tucson.
My grandfather did the same thing.
Yeah, it's like
just really smart investing.
My grandfather did the same thing. He was in the military and bought apartment complexes. I'm like, how did you manage with military salary to buy your first apartment complex?
His whole life as in a butcher at Kruger's, but ended up passing away, and he had millions of dollars. Just very, very frugal and investing the right way.
Oh yeah. They're still that way. I mean, they're driving an old beat up Buick with the ceiling falling down right now. It's like they could go buy
like
whatever
Staples.
They just they got little pins up in the
that.
Yeah, that's what she just did that. So, but that's just who they are, and they're happy with it. But that was our the problem with what they had done versus my situation at the time is, they could get no doc loans and other things where I couldn't do that. So
I got to take advantage of that when I started. It was
first
amazing.
Job I got 2 as well.
Yeah.
That was 2007 where they cut it off.
A lot of irresponsible people that were just trying to buy bigger stuff, it screwed them. But I was being able to make a ton of money because I'm just buying stuff for 5% down.
Yep.
Nothing.
Yeah.
No doc literally means no documentation.
Yeah. We got asked this week by one of my employees. She called me first. And I was like, you know what? We'll patch you into Sean. Sean can tell you better. She's like, we own a home now. The home has a lot of equity in it. But because we owe that with what we make, it's hard for us to get our first rental property. We don't. We want to stay in the house we're in.
Yeah.
How do we do that? And I'm like, I really don't know these days how you leverage what you have versus borrowing against. I don't really know. Sean's the one to ask. So when someone's wanting to do their very own house, if they own a home and it's not an apartment, how do they buy the first house with the no doc loans? That's how I did it. So I don't know how anybody else would do it.
You mean nowadays?
Yeah, nowadays versus what we did.
I believe FHA allows you to buy. You can get your first mortgage through FHA.
So if you're living in an apartment to save money and you want to buy your first house, you could get an FHA loan. Take advantage of that. 3% down?
Yeah. Yes. Well, so you can do an FHA loan. But I wouldn't recommend doing that unless you could not qualify for conventional.
But if someone doesn't have a ton of cash down, they have maybe $5,000 and they really want to do it, and they found a great investment property.
Well, so depending on where your credit score is at, you can do 0% down on conventional loans right now as a primary residence. Yeah. So I just had a buddy that did that a few months ago. They've got really good credit, but they were able to do 0% down. Now that's more rare, but I mean. That's like, so what we did.
What mortgage company's doing that? Do you know?
I don't know who they were through, but so when we bought our first house, we knew that we needed to do something to somehow change the wheel for us, because it was going to be, I was looking at a dead end job at the time, at least I felt like I was, and wasn't going to go anywhere. And I did not want to work for somebody else the rest of my life. I had that entrepreneurial mindset, at least at that time, but like, how can I get a rental property? I'm making $35,000 a year. I can't afford 20% down, because everybody still thinks you have to save up that 20% down.
And that's what I wanted to bring that up, because a lot of people don't know where to get started. Like, it's my very first one, or I have one that I'm living in, and this one's not going to be my primary. What are my options?
Or I don't want to use all my cash and then be stuck with nothing and barely making it with their first property.
My starting point for all of this was house hacking, and I think people just have this picture of house hacking as you buy a duplex or a triplex or fourplex or whatever. You live in one unit, you rent out the rest. And duplexes and fourplexes are not as easy to come by as single family homes, nor for the price point that you're looking for. So I don't even know who I was listening to, but I was driving a lot at that time for work to and from, and it was on a podcast. And this guy mentioned this idea of house hacking, where you move into a house. So instead of putting 20% down on an investment property, you put 3% down or 3.5 with an FHA, but we did 3% down on a conventional loan. You move into this house, you live in the house for 1 year. As you renovate the house, then you move out, you rent it out, and you repeat. So we moved 5 times in 5 years. That's what we did. We were putting 3% down each time.
That's kind of like what I told you that I do here. I bought the building and then subleased all the little spaces to help cover the note.
I did the same thing. Whenever I was my very first house, when I was 19 or 20, I don't even remember now, but I did the same thing. I moved into it. So I worked my 8 to 5 job. I came home and I renovated it at night.
And you live in construction.
And
I put a towel under the door in the master bedroom, and then I just renovated the whole house, and I would walk through Warzone.
So the first one you bought was a duplex?
No, it was a single family.
It was a single family.
Yep. Our first house was, so it was for sale for $90,000, and we were dirt broke, right? So I was approved for up to 110, and this house that we found was 90. It was like a 1960s home, so it wasn't like the dawn of time, but it was still old. But it had orange shake carpet in every room. It had carpet in the kitchen, wood panel walls. Wood panel. The bathroom did not have carpet in it. That was the only room.
That's always my favorite. We just recently saw one in Austin like that too. I'm like, I don't even want to get down there and smell that.
Oh man, but just wood paneling everywhere, and it was the definition of grandma's house. But it was something that we could afford, and maybe you could have qualified with an FHA because it wasn't like unlivable. It needed some serious cosmetic updates though, but I offered the guy $92,000, so that way, with the stipulation that he would pay $2,000 of closing costs. Because for me, that was my way of paying less out of pocket. We also, I called, I think 10 different banks and found a first-time home buyers program, which was $1,000. We actually got to go to a hockey game, Iowa Wild Hockey, and held up a big check on the teleprompter and stuff. And then the mascot came to our closing. But we paid. It was like $3,000 total closing costs.
I think that's really good for people to hear that you can do this.
Was $3,000,
and that you can ask for or offer to pay a little bit more to get some more at closing. Some people don't know these simple facts about how to get some of that down payment covered. That's the hardest part for people to do, is to take that risk. And
usually in the lower price points, like 300 and under, everyone asks for closing costs, right? It's always like, oh yeah, full price offer, but we'll give you. Please pay our closing costs. And
so that's what
you can
I
hopefully
did
walk to the
with
table
last
with
one.
no money. So people out there listening, whenever they make an offer on a house, you basically offer, if the house is selling for 150, you offer 155, right? And then the 5,000 would in turn pay your closing
Yeah,
costs
that's
or whatever.
What we did
would
our
cover the
last
closing
one. It
costs.
was 225 is what he countered. I offered like 215. It was for sale for I think 230. He countered 225, and I said, I'll pay you your 230 that you were wanting, but you pay 5,000 closing costs.
Yeah.
So like, okay. And that
So everybody
that
gets
off
what
the
they
front.
want. Yeah. Right.
Which I was using a HELOC to pay for the whole thing anyway, but my HELOC interest rate it's like 9.75 right now, where I was using I actually got a conventional loan on our last one investment. And it's at 7.625. So I'm like, well, it's cheaper. It's still going to save you money. So yeah, I mean,
is that what long-term mortgages are right now? Is it about 7.5?
That was an investment property. So I think if it's a primary residence, it's in like mid sixes right now, but they're talking about it dropping here. So I don't know. I mean, they've been talking about that for a long time, but
we don't drop it too much now. Got to keep our high interest savings,
Yeah. So I need to do some cash out refis. So I'd be happy if it drops a little bit.
So you bought the first one and then you renovated it while you lived there.
Mm-hmm.
Took you a year.
So did you stay in it for the full year and then?
Yeah, so the stipulation is, and I think it varies state by state, but in order to not commit mortgage fraud, you have to live there for a year unless there's extenuating circumstances that, show you need to leave for another reason. So
on 365th day, you're like putting it up for.
Yeah, I think we lived there for 13 months is what it ended up being. But
so let's back. Before we go any further into your story, I want to know, how did you figure out how to do all this stuff? Were you on YouTube? Did your father-in-law help you?
Yeah, so my father-in-law, my in-laws were handy because they had fixed up houses and done flips and all that stuff too. So, but they're the type of people that are not just going to come over and do it for you. He'll show you how to do it and how to get started, and then just
lay the first tile and be like, peace.
Yeah, I mean, there was stuff like that. We, getting into some different things that he hadn't done before too. It was YouTube. I mean, my wife and I are just sitting there in the evening at 11 o'clock at night, figuring out how to lay tile on a backsplash. We did this because we couldn't afford, new countertops, and this thing was like gold speckled, whatever. So we did a countertop paint kit in this thing for like $180, and
those look pretty good. I saw those. I follow a lot of home stuff.
Well, we sold it 2 years later for sale by owner, $145, and I got a check for $50,000. I had only put $5,000 into this thing as I lived there. Oh wow! And we sold it to move on to some better rental properties from that.
More than you were making in a full year's for the cell phone sales.
Yeah, that was like the big. Well, renting it out was a big click for me too, because my mortgage payment was $680 a month, and I was renting this thing out for $12. So that was serious cash flow for me, because I wasn't making much anything. And then. So
did you only rent it out for 11 months? It sounds like.
About a year. Yeah, we started to have some issues with the house. It was kind of falling apart. There's only so much that caulk can do to fix things, and we were buying some other properties at that time too. Using the cash to use for. Down payments on other things. So, and fix up our other stuff that we were living in. So, yeah.
So how did the second house come about? How did you find that one? Were you looking the whole time while you were remodeling the first?
So we looked for probably 3 months for that one. And I actually bought it off a family member. So another hack that we used on that one is we negotiated a gift of equity. If you buy a property from a friend or family member, you can get a gift of equity. So as long as you have over 20% equity in the property, you can, tell your bank, it's like, hey, I've got 20% equity. I do not need to have my mortgage insurance on this. So I got rid of the PMI by having 20% equity in it.
And for people that don't know, how much has that saved them if they were?
It totally depends on the price of the house. But if you buy a property with a conventional loan or FHA loan, so you have less than 20% down, you have less than 20% equity in the house, you're going to pay PMI, private mortgage insurance, which I don't remember the percentage of that. It's a percentage of the purchase price. It's like 2%, 2.5%. I can't remember. But I mean, it'll save you hundreds of dollars a month. It'll save you hundreds a month. On a house that's under $200,000.
So is it part of your monthly payment then? Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah. So you'll pay your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and then you'll also pay your mortgage insurance as well on top of that. It's part of the loan. It's part of the mortgage.
So how bad off was that house? Did that require a lot of work?
It did. About the same as the first one.
So
just outdated. Well? It was a 70s home. Yeah. We moved in the second home, 70s home. We gutted the bathrooms, the kitchen. We laid down carpet on our own, which I don't recommend doing, but we did that. That had to be replaced. Soon after. We did that, and then on the third house, we added an entire master suite to the basement, where we're literally just living in this construction zone. I mean, I cut out concrete and brought 5-gallon buckets of of concrete remains outside and laid down drain for the shower and vanities or sinks and everything. So yeah, I mean, we learned as we went, and we just lived in one at a time, and we house hacked through 4 properties. And then the last house we did, we're still living in right now. So we've been there for 6 years, and we kind of made that our permanent house.
So the first one you rent out to a long-term renter. How did you market or advertise that one? Just a for lease sign out front?
Facebook and Zillow rentals.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the second, third, and fourth. So now it's really picking up. Now you have multiple properties.
Yeah.
At this point, what platform are you using to get these rented out? And they all,
We've always had the best luck
leases?
on Zillow rentals. Really? Yeah. That's kind of been our main. I'm sure
See,
it varies market to market, but
we don't use Zillow here. People in Houston, we have such a good platform, an MLS system. It's called HAR.
Okay.
So nobody uses Zillow here, but I know in Louisiana, just our nearby neighbors all use Zillow.
Yep.
So people just go on there and look for not only for sale, but also for lease.
Yeah, correct.
No idea that was even
so there's Zillow and then Zillow Rentals, which is a separate app, and you can just look for rental properties. So we also do put it on Facebook Marketplace, and then Craigslist, which is kind of a thing of the past now. But
I heard that Facebook Marketplace was really good. Like one of my friends was doing it, and leasing out kind of condo. They were like live-in condo kind of things, to where it had like a little warehouse bay, and then it was like almost like a shop with a house on top. And he leased them all through Facebook Marketplace, every single one of them.
We get the most traction through there, like the most number of messages, but there's a lot of those is the still available messages and stuff.
Or the INT.
Yeah, I mean, like, we'll get 100 different messages from people, and then maybe only a quarter of them will respond. So it sometimes just feels like a waste of time. Zillow Rentals seems to be more like legitimate people actually looking for stuff. So, but we've in 10 years, I've never had more than 3 weeks of vacancy at a single time.
Oh, wow. That's pretty great.
So,
that's also hard for people too that are trying to get into investing. Is like, what if it sits for 3 months and I don't sell it?
The thing with a single family home, if you have a 3.2 or something that's priced, $1,500-$1,600 a month or below, I've never had one sit over 2 weeks or so either, ever. And so it's different than commercial, because commercial, it's a building. You kind of have to find the right business or tenant based on the size, and so they can sit for a little while. But in residential, there's just so much demand.
Yeah.
If you have the right...
People can't get approved for a home when they want a home, they're going to rent.
Yep.
So do you use a third-party company to do the background checks or credit checks, or how do you do that?
No. Polk County Courts Online. So we look up our own stuff. I am working with a company that's more legitimate now, just in the startup with them on running better background checks. But typically we'll do our own due diligence. I don't usually care as much about credit score. I know some investors really do. I don't, and I've never had bad luck with it, I guess. But
I never did either.
I was wondering if you did. I was about to ask you that.
I never looked at their credit score, because some people go through divorce, but you can tell if you look at their payment history, if they are paying stuff late consistently in the last year and a half, 2 years, that's just their pattern. They're going to continue to do it. But if you can tell they have a bad credit score and they paid stuff on time for 2 years, they're going to pay you. I mean, they're going to take care of it. They're going to pay you. Was been my experience from leasing to all these people.
The few things that we require is, number one, I need to see current employment records. So I need to see your last few pay stubs. I need to be able to confirm that you're making at least 3 times that of the rent.
These are good helpful tips to know what for people to look for if they're just doing this on their own. 3 times rent.
Yep, 3 times the rent. Current employment stuff. I'll call employers sometimes just to make sure that they still have their job. Okay. If I can see the pay stubs though, and they just got it, that's usually a no-brainer, goes hand in hand. But we don't usually allow pets. Sometimes we do. It just depends on the property.
Oh yeah, they're just going to destroy it every single time. Even our 4-pound dog. Every house that we ever lived
I've never done Section 8. I know that some people will take that. I don't usually.
You had one Section 8,
but I haven't really had to. So
is that like the government housing where the government's writing you the check? You did that one time.
I bought a property that was already Section 8, and so we were renovating it. And this was one of my first.
But isn't Section 8 good because it's kind of guaranteed you're going to get that your house going to be destroyed, but you definitely get paid.
Typically with Section 8, it doesn't cover the entire rent either. Yeah. So usually Section 8 will cover a portion of the rent, 60, 80% or whatever, and then they still have to come up with the rest of it. So. And you could potentially run into people not taking as good of care of the property either.
We didn't hold that property. It's just not the market that we sit in. We just bought it because it was a foreclosure. There were some Section 8 individual families living there, and we cleaned it all up. A couple of them had moved out, and then we just resold it with like 2 tenants that were already Section 8 that were living in there, but everything else was renovated and somebody could just go and put it on the market. Our bank at the time called us and said, hey, I have this property. If y'all want to take a look at it before we try and sell it. They had just foreclosed on it, and so that's why we bought it. But I don't know. I don't think it's the market that I wanted to be in. I know some people are good at it and make money at it, but I just don't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I want to be in that market.
Yeah, there's this guy, Tom Cruise, I think is his name.
Yeah.
That does Section 8 rentals, and he's some, multimillionaire, yacht, mansion, all the things. But I don't know. It's not for me.
Not for me either.
So I want to know what's your worst experience. Sounds like you had a pretty good experience so far with renters. My one time that I was renting was terrible. Actually, I had one good renter, one bad renter. So I'm 50-50 at this point. So I quit and gave up. And he actually sold off all of his rental because he's like, I just can't manage it.
Yep.
I got up to about 58 single family homes.
Wow. Okay.
For a while. And we mainly do commercial now.
He didn't have a property manager. He was doing it himself because he had hired
a
property
manager. You're
doing
58 on your own?
Yes.
And running a business. And
like all day, every Sunday we were driving around.
Man.
Mr. Sean, his blinds don't fit. I mean, just always something that people were calling him about, like fixing like these tiny little things, like, And
that's part of it.
People, I can't change my light bulb. I can't reach it. He's like, I can't deal with this.
I never, out of all those houses, we evicted one person.
You were about to evict one, and then you had a mess to clean up after that.
Yeah, the last person, we didn't even get a chance to get to eviction, but that's when we were out selling them all off. And I just called and said, hey, look, we're selling the property. They were actually good tenants, and they lived there for like 7 years. But we had one bad experience where some lady that was different. So we had one bad experience in my rentals. When we used to buy properties at the foreclosure auction and flip them, we had another bad experience where some lady squatted in there for like 8 months, and they kind of know the system, and they can file a lawsuit or file bankruptcy, or there's like certain things they can do. And it took us like 7 or 8 months to get that property back.
You turned off the crazy. AC. I'm going to say politely turned off the AC, and she still wouldn't leave.
Oh, my word.
She had like trails inside the house. He's like, you're not even going to believe this house. There's like milk jugs everywhere.
It's crazy. When we used to buy them from the foreclosure auction, it is insane to see how people, like, you show up and you're like, no way somebody was living in this house.
Yeah.
No way. Like, just maggots in the refrigerator, and and again, that's a different business. We're buying them when people either left them vacant or destroyed them, put holes through the wall because they were mad.
Oh yeah. Like I've never bought like that, and I don't know. Like you asked, like our horror story. I don't really have one. I mean, I've got the worst one that I had. I've only ever had to keep the entire deposit one time, and that was just because it was dirty when I got it back. There was one broken mirror that just had a crack in it, and then just filthy. The garage door was dented. I mean, there were a couple things. There was a broken window, so a couple things kind of ate up that deposit. And like a shelf in the refrigerator was broken.
He's screening his own people, and so if you take the time, he's actually probably doing more than most and calling their job and doing just a little bit of research. Most people are good people. Yeah,
like the two biggest, I feel like the main two things that I do aren't even necessarily looking like the proof of income is just so I can see that they can afford it. But the two biggest things that we do are, number one, call their current landlord. Most of the time if somebody's renting, they're going to be, they're wanting to rent from you. That's not because they're moving out of a house that they own. It's because they have somebody that they're renting from. So I'll call their current landlord and, get a feel out for that. Now, there are some landlords that would be like, I want this guy gone, and I'm just going to lie. But most of the time, I feel like you're going to get somebody who will tell you, we've had on-time payments, such and such or whatever. The second thing is I'm meeting them there in person. So I will, when we put a property up for rent, I'll put my ads out. I actually just got a text on the way up here. A long-term tenant that's been with us for 4 years now is leaving. I loved them, so that's sad. But I'm going to put an ad up tomorrow. They're not moving out till August 10th. We have to have 30-day notice, so we get rent through all of August. I'll tell them, if we can get it rented before the end of August, I'll prorate you back whatever days that, we had it rented by somebody else. But I'll start showing it right away.
I was wondering, are they usually okay with you showing it while they're still living there?
They have to be. Yeah. But it's part of the lease is that, if they give us official 30-day notice, then I am legally allowed to start showing it, and I will. And they will be happy with me showing it because they, like she said to me in her text, she's like, is it okay if we just prorate through the 10th of August because that's our last day? It's like, I want to be nice and say yes, but it's also a business. So I'm going to say, well, I still need August rent, but if we can get it rented out by the, 12th, 13th, 14th or whatever, then I'll give it all back to you. So that does two things. Number one, that tells her I need to keep my house really clean because he's going to be showing it to people. Yeah. And I want to let the people in so that way they can get a lease signed and have it rented for that time. And I'm going to leave this place really clean. That way I get my deposit back, which is, sometimes motivated for most people. But the other reason is that way I can get somebody moved in there faster, because then the faster, that. So it's kind of,
because they're not going to work with you if you're not working with them.
And then I'll send back whatever. Like, I'm not going to double rent it. So, we'll send back whatever. But,
I think most people that's about treating it like a business. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest mistake most people probably make, and I made early on. And
they get emotional. Yep.
You're like, oh, okay, no problem. You can pay late. Oh, no problem. And you can't do it. You have to say, look, you have to make it just like a business. This is our invoice. This is our late pay. This is this, and just stand your ground with people. And they'll usually pay you on time, or they'll pay the late fee every single month. And if you just don't, they'll just see how far they can push you. And we'll pay you later. We'll pay you 2 weeks, and they'll just send in the money whenever. And so you have to treat it like a real business. You have to send out invoices on time. You have to charge late fees. And so that's going to be a big deal for somebody starting.
Yeah. And it's not even because people, I think some people want to, play around with things and whatever, but like run in circles with you. But there's other people that are just forgetful or, don't care as much or prioritize something else or whatever. But like if you give them, a little bit of room, they're going to take it and run with it most of the time. Like we had just this month, I've had this guy who's been renting, we've got a fourplex, and he has been late almost every single month, where it's just been like, it's due 5:00 on the first of the month. That's when it's due. You can send it anytime you want to. We will not deposit the check until after 5 on the first of the month.
So you actually take paper checks?
Some people I do. Now, he does not send a check. I've given him direct deposit information. He has said that he'll set it up. He still hasn't. He sends us Apple Pay. It's a little messy, but I've dealt with it because I only have 7 long-term rentals right now. But he sent it, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or the next day or whatever. So it's just been like little things here and there, which like hasn't been a big deal. But then it's like the second, then the third, and then it's like where I'm sending a text, hey, where's rent, whatever. Like I gave him a grace month the first time, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do this anymore. Like we need this right away. And last month I charged him $50. It was the second I messaged him. I had given him a warning, and I'm like, here's rent, and I'm like, there's a $50 late fee. Well, this doesn't make any sense. I've got my own apartments too. And, because he's basically, it's like a sublease for something. He's a business owner in the city and he rents it out to one of his employees.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. It's like, no, it's not going to happen. And then this month, same thing happened again. He was like 3 hours late, but I told him like,
we've already been,
you're late. We've been down this road. Well, this is just absolutely ridiculous. I let my people pay whenever they want to, and it's like better than anybody else. Cause you're, a property owner, like you don't do this, but if you keep doing that, people will keep taking advantage of you. Yes.
Do you give them an option to do like, if I were to ever do this, just to streamline everything like you are with your, short-term rentals, do you have a direct withdrawal? I'm going to say direct deposit.
We give everybody direct deposit info. Yeah.
So, but they would still have to manually do it. Is there something where
they just have to go into their bank and give them the information, and the bank will cut us a check every month. So
do you have it where you just auto pull the money out every single month, like a membership type program?
No, most banks have just a bill pay system, and so you say, hey, on the first of the month, I want you to.
But the customer has to set that up, though.
They do.
But what if he set that up? That would streamline everything.
Like an ACH.
Pulls out of everyone's account every single month at the same date at the same time.
I don't know if I can.
Then you don't have to pay bill collector.
I don't know if banks allow for that. I don't know if you can do that without continued consent from them. Be like a wire transfer, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure on that one. But
the only way you could do it is like, if you had some sort of like QuickBooks type software or something, but if I charge you 3%.
Yeah, like 5 of our 7 are automatic. We've got people that use Zelle. Zelle is probably the main way, where it's just, bank to bank, boom, yep, automatic every month, yep. Otherwise, like where their bank cuts us a check and then sends us the check, and it's automatic as well. So
how much of how many of your 11 properties are short-term versus long-term?
We have 3 short-term, and the rest are long-term.
What makes you the most amount of money?
Short-term.
What causes the biggest headache?
Short-term.
There you go.
Yeah.
More money, more problems. So what is the difference in revenue? I know you said you're kind of making about, from what I heard from your videos, about $300,000 a year is what you're making on the short and long-term combined, right?
Yep.
What percent of that comes? Is it 50%?
Right now it's about $110K revenue from our long term, and then the rest is all short term.
So definitely more.
Mm-hmm.
Is from here going forward, are you capping yourself at the 11 that you have, or do you have plans to keep going and keep growing this thing?
I mean, like we talked about earlier, like I'm happy with where we're at and the income that we're bringing in. Like for us, like we live a very minimal lifestyle.
I saw you live on a farm with cows and horses.
Not cows. I will not do cows. I will not do cows. Yes, we've got horses, chickens, cats, dogs, all the things. Got a bunch of 4-wheelers. I can shoot off my back deck. I've got.
How many acres do you guys have?
So we own 3, and then my in-laws own land connected onto ours, and they've got 28.
Oh wow!
So
it's a pretty good place for the kids to roam.
Yeah. So we've got 4-wheeler trails all through there and everything, and I don't know, like we enjoy it. I spend probably more money on vacations than I do on my mortgage payment, but that's just by choice because we love to travel and go different places and have experiences.
I saw that you said that your life is more about experiences than material things in one of your videos.
Yep. Like
you said, you drive I think it was a Honda Pilot.
Yes.
Like
yep.
You're like, I don't care about fancy cars. A lot of the guys here on TikTok with equal amount of followers.
Yep.
I think you said you have like 160,000 followers on TikTok. People kind of doing the same thing you are with real estate investing on there. It's all about flashy cars. I mean, you've mentioned a couple of guys that you followed, the flashy cars, the private jets, the extra houses, the boats. But you said, I don't care about all those things. I want to be able to live a healthy, nice lifestyle, have my family, on this farm and experience life and have the experiences of vacations.
Yeah, it's like, at the end of the day, I could go out and I could, have a car payment for something significantly nicer than what I'm driving. But I choose not to because I'd rather use that money for experiences instead right now. So like we take nice vacations. I mean, we just spent a couple weeks in a luxury condo in Winter Park, doing stuff, every single day. Because that's where I'd rather put my money right now. And then we're also reinvesting about 50% of what we're making too, into other things, whether that be like on our own home. Like my wife and I actually just ordered and I'll build it myself just because I enjoy it. We ordered a back deck for our house. It's a 50-foot by 14-foot deck.
Must be nice to have a man at home that can build stuff for you.
That I'll build, but like I enjoy it. Right?
He does not. He hates it.
And I have the time.
I think I'm just burned out. I did it for so long. I'm like, I don't even want any part of it. I'll hire somebody to do it. Yeah. I don't even want to think about it.
You just got that pawpaw energy. You just want to get out there and build shit. It's fine.
I do. Well, my father-in-law helps me. My dad will help with it as well. So it'll be something where we can hang out and, grill some stuff and build a deck together. So it'll be a good time. But, like I look at that though, it's like I'm adding equity to my house as well, so I could potentially increase my HELOC as well, and then use that to recycle into properties too. So, but that's kind of what we spend our money on. And we just bought our newest short-term rental, and I put $100,000 into that for down payment, closing costs, renovations, furnishings, which probably would have been double that if I hired somebody to do all of the stuff that we did, but. And that property just cash flowed us over $6,000 last month. It brought in $9,500 in revenue the first month.
So
it's really awesome.
I bought it for $230.
I was gonna ask. You house hacked the first 5 houses. So you moved into it, stayed in it for a year, rented it out. How did you get? I think we skipped over on the short terms. How did you start buying those?
Yeah, so we finally had this shift where we were having babies as we were going through these houses too, and life was just getting super stressful trying to juggle children and renovating houses and living in construction.
Moving with one kid is hard. I can't imagine
for. It's like holy cow. So we had planned to do it a few more times, but we got this deal on this property that we live in now with 3 acres, ranch style home, walkout basement. It was all the things that we wanted, but the house was a dive. So we got a really good deal on it. I bought this thing for $180,000 and it's worth about $400,000 now.
Wow.
So but we added about $40,000. So we took, 2 years off of buying rental properties to use the cash flow to put into our own house. And then when we were done, we had an attached garage. I knocked out the wall attaching the garage to the house. It's just truss built, so it was not supporting. Made it a big open room. We gutted the kitchen, the living room, put in hickory cabinets and nice wood floors and big custom quartz countertops and all the things that we wanted because we wanted to stay there, and so made it our own. And then pulled out this HELOC. We got $150,000 on a home equity line of credit, and I had been researching and learning about short-term rentals at this time. And I knew that I wanted to do it. I did not think that Des Moines, Iowa would be profitable at all because it's not a vacation spot, right? Nobody goes to Des Moines. But at the same time, it was still just my level of comfort. You know, like anybody, like if you haven't tried something yet, trying something new is scary. You know, like you get comfortable in your own zone of what you're doing, and you're nervous to try something new. But I'd been researching a lot. I've always been more of the just go after it and try it, or my wife's more like the reserved, like let's calculate this, make sure this can make sense. So it was more like let's try this local first, make sure that we understand it. Even if the house doesn't do well, we could always just convert it into a long-term rental later on or whatever if we needed to, and have all of the contingencies, all the backup plans. And at the end of 2021, we bought our first house that we were going to specifically have as a short-term rental. We actually closed on a long-term rental at the same time too. We got 2 good deals at the same time, but we renovated this thing ourselves. It took us 2 months. Put it up for rent. I bought this house for $160,000. We put about $30,000 into it for renovations and furnishings, and put it up for rent on Airbnb. It was like January 1st of 2022, and it brought in $54,000 in revenue.
That's so good.
Yeah. I mean, our monthly expenses were...
Are you talking about the first year?
Yeah.
Okay.
But still, that's for
that's
100
great.
and...
We cash flowed $2,500 a month on this house. And that was like... So we had 70% average occupancy over the course of the year as well.
What's the draw to the city, or why are people using that particular house?
I call it a accommodation location, not a vacation destination. So if you ask the average investor out in the Des Moines, Iowa market if it's profitable, they're going to say it's not. I've gone to different meetups, like real estate investor meetups, talked to different people about, you know, short-term rentals. There's like 1,000 total in the Des Moines metro area in surrounding cities. And the majority of people tell me that they're barely cutting even, or maybe making a few $100 a month. But that's because most short-term rental investors, and this is any market, are just doing the bare minimums. They're having the beds in a simple house without the experience.
You polish the turd a little bit nicer than everybody else, and then you're going to be the number one pick. When they're digging through all these pictures, they want what has good photos.
Exactly.
I was thinking the same thing. What amenities or what extras do you have?
Yeah. So our first house, I mean, so I learned 2 things. So I partner with a company, well now, and this is where doing social media has been great, because a lot of these guys that I used, now I'm making videos with them and collaborating and building these relationships with them. But these guys, AirDNA is I believe still the number 1 software for market insights on short-term rentals, and they gave Des Moines a market score of 26 out of 100, which is very bad for investability, saying don't invest here, it's not a good market. Now it's like 56. And I like to say that I take some of the credit for that because they're using data from our properties too. But what I found out though as well, I found out a couple things.
Where are they getting the data from?
So they're pulling information. That's a good question. I don't know where they get all of their info. I know that they can see a bunch of stuff through Airbnb, VRBO,
MLS, and
yeah. I don't know where they get like the profit in from exactly, but they have some source. I'm sure that they're pulling that from. But they can see like their average daily rates. They can see occupancy. They can see like what types of properties and amenities and stuff like that. And I learned 80% of the properties in Des Moines had 3 or less bedrooms. Most of them were 2 or less, and slept up to 8 people. So I'm like, let's buy a 4-bedroom house and do 10 people. So we've got 10 people in this first house. And then I also add a mural, and I add a game room. And I mean, I didn't go crazy big. I didn't add a hot tub or anything at that one. But the second year, we added a hot tub there because we opened up our second property about a year later. And that one was just going absolutely crazy. I put a hot tub there. Nobody else had a hot tub. And I'm like, there's a few small properties that have a hot tub, but a hot tub is the number 1 search, amenity on Airbnb. Let's throw this in here. Nobody thinks about hot tubs in Des Moines, but I put that in there, and then we put it in our first property. No,
you don't have it's too cold.
No. Yeah. It is hot, but it's very seasonal. You get maybe 3-4 months with the pool before it's
Here you get like 12 months of hot.
Not here. No.
I feel like I can make a super cool short-term rental property.
I know Sean's gonna start buying up in your neighborhood. You better be careful.
Well, so our second house we bought for $165, and I went a little bit better on my amenities, and I spent about $50 on that one for all of the furnishings, including a hot tub, which was $7,000. I think we spent on that. Okay. We did our first year on that house was $79,000 in revenue.
See?
Wow.
Yeah. So like I'm seeing this house do a lot better, and I'm like, okay, let's add a hot tub over here, and we did $15,000 more on that first house our second year than we did the first year.
When you say game room, what's all in the game room?
So I buy, I mean, they're basic, the arcade 1-up game systems. So I've got like the Simpsons 4-player game, X-Men 4-player.
Are you doing pool tables or air hockey or anything?
The houses, unfortunately, we bought our older homes and they just didn't have the space for it. So I put big screen TVs. So like this last one, I've got a 65-inch 4K TV with a Wii, which I know like people are like, well, you know, we should do a PlayStation or Xbox, but people like want
activity,
the experience. Yeah, like the, you know, where everybody can play and grandma can play, you know, Wii bowling and stuff like that, and everybody can get in. So I just get on Facebook and, you know, grab a Nintendo Wii with a bunch of games for $100 and throw that there. And
need the one for the lake house.
People love that stuff. So
we have so much shit at our lake house. I don't think you can add anymore. There's nothing. There's like they can't decide what to do.
If I ever wanted to short-term rent our lake house,
we get $30,000.
It will rent for a lot, only because it's just
it sleeps 22
amenities.
People.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, he has like a full on. He is like a psychopath. He's like, I don't want anyone to ever leave once they come here. I was like, okay, prisoner.
But
22 people.
He literally he wants to keep them there. The podcast team is rooting over there because they're like coming this weekend. They're like, yes, we're not leaving. Wow. Let's shoot more podcasts at the lake house. But he created it.
So if you ever need me back for more content and just want to go there, just
actually, we almost considered because of the hurricane. I actually called him today.
I will.
I said, ship his ass to fucking Austin. We're all getting in the car right now because by the way, I know you're not going to see this podcast for like probably months from now, but nobody has power in Houston right now except for Gentry Kelly Cosmetics. That's how we're able to do this. Yeah, but that's why the roads ever lost power because Hurricane Beryl came through here and tore us all up. So yeah, we are like day 4 without power and we are dying. I sweated my tits off last night and I'm like, let's just go back to Austin. We have AC in Austin. It's 3 hours away. It didn't get messed up by the hurricane. Man. And I was going to move you and the 2 podcasts tomorrow over there and just ship your ass over there since your flight got.
You've got 2 tomorrow.
We have 2 tomorrow. And one of the guys is from Austin. I was like, this is perfect. So I called them and they were like, yes, let's do it. And Sean's funny. Like, no, it's already handled. I'm like, damn it.
That's funny.
But he wanted to create like, you know, a
experience,
like basically a compound, you know, where everyone could go and have like a true like camping, glamping type experience where it's 8 acres, it's on the water. You get to go, you know, wake surfing. Man. He's got a gym there, a full 24-hour fitness. I don't know if you guys have those up there. It's got an 18-person theater with a full TV as big as this wall and arcade and all the stuff to go along with it. But
one day
wants to keep adding more shit. He wants a cold plunge.
Down the road, whenever we'll have to invite you and your kids and stuff we
got a really good deal on the house, and it was, you know, a lot of opportunity. So the house, the lady, her husband had passed away, and it was just like, I think getting too much for her to take care of with 8 acres. And so her kids had all grown up, and she's like, I just want to get rid of it. So it's an off-market deal, and we got it, and now it's worth double of what it was.
So that's why I bought it.
Yeah.
She knows I won't buy anything just
full
to
price.
buy it at retail. So we bought it and there was a big structure on the back that was 6,000 square feet, but it was like 2 workshops, a RV spot. So that's what we closed in and added 6,000 square feet up there.
So it was really only 1 house and then this like
now
wood
it's
shop
2 houses.
Storage.
So anyways, back to the short-term rentals. I think I could do I have a lot of good ideas on the short-term rental thing.
So to make it work, it sounds like you're managing everything yourself. I have 2 questions. So this is 2 parts, and I'll ask both questions because I have dementia and I'm going to forget. But one of them is, to make this work, do you feel like in order to scale that you have to keep it in your hometown? Have you branched out? No. And then second question is, are you doing this all yourself, and do you have employees that are helping you manage these?
First question. No, you do not need to do this all in your hometown. I actually would encourage against that. Solely because so we live in a good area to invest. I mean, the Midwest in general is fantastic still for short term. Well, for long term mostly, but
you're still getting good deals too.
The real estate market there is decent. I mean, your median house price, I want to say, is like $260 right now. That's out there.
Great.
So
it's getting so overpriced in Houston that if somebody wants to break out and they feel like they need to do it in their hometown, I mean, you can't really even in a shitty neighborhood getting anything for $300,000.
Now,
Houston and surrounding
I
areas.
fully believe that you can invest in any market if you can find the right deal. Like I've never bought properties that are turnkey. I now, like, I'm at a place now where it's crossed my mind. I haven't just because we have the income that I could and see a few $100 a month, but it's like I'd rather. I mean, my long-term rentals, my cash flow is $800 a month on those things.
Yeah, I could never make those work because number one, I want to walk away with a certain amount of equity on day one, right? Yep. And then also, it's really hard to make those cash flow.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go put 20% down and you like, but we're trying to make it cash flow with almost nothing down, right? So the numbers have to work. You have to find a good deal.
Yeah.
You have to fix it up. You have to create the value, and then you'll find the cash flow. Because I'm trying to do it. We do it with no money down sometimes too. Yeah. And these are bigger properties. We're doing it.
But he doesn't really invest besides the lake house. He doesn't really invest anything outside the Houston area because he knows Houston so well. So he knows, like, I know this area is near a chemical plant and I know there's always going to be renters. If I'm buying this house as a rental property, I'm going to make a lot of money in this town always because the chemical plants never shut down. They're always cranking out.
We invest in Texas. Jobs, we have stuff in surrounding Houston areas, which we can get to. We understand.
But you're not looking for those deals. That's your partners.
We have one shopping center that is in Georgia. And it worked out really well, but thankfully my partner went out there and managing contractors flying out there.
But he said, he's like, it's hard. I probably wouldn't do this again. He goes, it's like the back and the forth.
Yeah, he said, I just don't think, it worked out. We're going to make a ton of money. It's worked double. But he's like, it's just too hard to manage from that far out. If you're trying to do what we do and buy distressed. And
so how many of your 11 are within a 5-mile proximity of your home? I mean, are they close?
We live in the country, so none of them right now. But they are all within 30 to 45 minutes, except for the fourplex. We had a duplex and fourplex that we bought in this small town, northeast Iowa, side by side from a set of investors. The town lawyer and the town doctor own these things and had them way under priced rent and everything. But we bought those a couple years ago. We sold the duplex and used some of that for our last short-term rental. But those, that's about 2.5 hours away. But those, I visit maybe once every, 4 or 5 months.
But were those turnkey then?
Yeah, they were already rented.
So they were already rented. You just kind of, as the people move out, you just kind of polish them up and then go on to the next. So how did you find that deal then, being so far away?
Yeah, I think sometimes people just overthink how to find the deal. There's 2 things for me that have been my biggest successors with this. Number one, have a great realtor. I mean, we have a great local girl that we work with who's part of a team where we use the lady that's her, I guess, boss, we used to use, and then she grew her team and we use somebody else on her team now. But they're fantastic. I mean,
so having a good team, because I think that's the number one question I get asked is, where do you find these? Do y'all go to the tax auction to buy these?
No.
My very first one I bought off of an eBay type website for houses. So I got lucky. I don't think that anything exists anymore. But just from watching him, I don't think going through the tax auction is probably the best way to go, because you don't know the condition of the property, and sometimes people are living in it. It's hard to get them out.
I've bought properties every way. Even I bought a bunch from wholesalers when I was getting up to the 55, 60 rentals. And so...
But don't you feel like by the time they hit, Zillow or HAR on the MLS, it's just you're not getting as good of deals?
I bought a lot of stuff off MLS.
I know think it's still. But you're on there. You're on the shitter every single morning looking at that. Most people don't spend as much time on LoopNet and HAR as you watching the deals.
I found a deal.
Yeah. So I mean, like for us at least, every single one of our deals has been found through Zillow. Every single one. Yeah. I've found all of them. The fourplex and duplex that I bought were on Zillow.
It is because you're on there consistently. It's like every day you're spending an hour on the phone.
Where I'm looking 6 to 8 times a day because I know what I'm searching for. I know where I'm searching for it. Do
you feel like there's a good day where you find really good deals popping up? Is it like, Monday, or is it Tuesday? Not a specific day of the week. It's just kind of random.
It's all over the place, but it definitely helps to know your market and to know what stuff can rent for as well. Because like we have a lot of our long-term rentals are in the same neighborhood, so I know exactly what I can rent houses for out over there. So
it allows you to be able to execute on a deal immediately, because if you see a house come up and it's $100,000 and you know what you can rent it for, you're like you'll immediately make an offer without even seeing it almost.
Oh yeah, yep, 100%. But yeah, Zillow, and then having a good realtor bet that's on your side and part of your team, because people will just use random people to help them find houses, and it's more than that, because like she's been part of our journey through all of it, so she knows what we want, and she will tell us when something's a bad deal as well, or tell us that we shouldn't go look at it, because it's not just about her making money off the deal. She's seeing the long term and growing our business with us. So, so I would say, like, even if you do invest out of market, you know, get on Facebook, you know, find a local real estate investor group, ask them who they're using for realtors in the area, and you know, have that person hopefully either have an investment property or very you know, familiar with it, and then also ask that group who they're using for property managers.
And do you hook that person up with your realtor so that they can kind of keep you out of it, or do you just start working with that new realtor?
I mean, for me, I would just work with them, but I'm a lot smaller time than you are right now, so like I don't, you know, I have the time that I can, so and I get the drive through doing that. I enjoy it. So but like we've only invested except for one deal, we've only invested in Iowa. So I bought a condo on South Padre Island in 2022, and I flipped that and made $100,000. That was sweet. Yeah, it was
coming out of COVID, and then
yeah. So that's one of those things where people are like,
for that one. How'd you handle that?
So the last 4 years we have spent our winter on South Padre Island in Texas.
Okay.
I was working my full-time job when we started doing it, but it was like COVID time. So like we did like 3 weeks the first year. The second year we did 6 weeks. And I worked remote because it was COVID stuff during that time. And then last year we were there for 3 months. Last year was 3 months. And the year before was 2 months. So anyway, but we were down there for a couple of months, and I built a relationship with one of the property managers for the condo that we were staying in. My in-laws were kind of looking for stuff too, so we were talking with different property managers, and we're like, if you know of any owner that is, you know, going to be selling, or you hear of anything, just let us know. So he calls us up like a week before we're going to leave, and he's like, hey, there's this guy that's thinking about selling. Do you want to go look at it? I'm like, yeah. So we go into this thing, and I knew that some of the other condos in this building had been selling for $250, $275. We get in there, and it needs up. I mean, the walls are yellow paint. The countertops are like just weird.
Country beige.
Yeah, just all color. Strange. Like carpet needs torn out. Like it needed new flooring. You know, new tile laid through it, all that stuff. And I'm thinking he's gonna ask like $250 for it. He's like, I do $210. And I'm trying to think logistics through this because I'm still working full time. And I'm like, okay, but I was remote, so I'm like, okay, like we're gonna make this work. We took him up on it. We drove home.
I was about to say,
we drove home.
Did you drive back?
We stayed back home for 40 days during escrow, and then we moved back there. I moved my family into this condo for 5 weeks. We renovated this thing while I was working. So I'm working during the day. My wife's painting. We did hire a contractor to lay tile, but like you're down near the border, and there's just some. Yeah. I mean, this awesome dude, Pedro.
That's what you guys don't have.
I loved Pedro. Pedro was awesome. He's a really good dude. Couldn't speak hardly any English, but he pointed and knew what we wanted on things. But they also brought in a countertop, and this was a third floor walk up. We had a one-piece granite slab. They had I think it was either 12 or 13 guys that put this thing on ropes and hoisted it up through all of the levels from the parking lot. But anyway, we put $12,500 into this thing to renovate it. We bought it for $210. We were gonna keep it as a short-term rental. That was our initial thought. Was let's keep this thing, have it as our, vacation spot that we can stay in. I'm sure
that's just so seasonal there.
But the market, and there's so many of them down there that we're like, we might cut even. Maybe we'll make a little bit. I don't know. Why don't we put this thing up for sale? Just something crazy. Mm-hmm. See what happens. The market was starting to shift where we kind of saw that mass exodus from California, people moving to Florida and Texas. I'm sure you guys probably saw a lot of that.
Yeah. Our real estate is probably doubled. And a lot of our stuff was doubled around here.
Let's put this thing up for $319. Just see what happens. Within 24 hours, we had 2 offers for $5,000 over asking price, cash offers. So I closed. The year that
everyone was buying. Everyone wanted to get out of big cities and have a place to go and run away.
Yeah, I closed 2 weeks later and got a check for $105,000 on this thing that we lived in for 5 weeks.
So that's the most profit you've made on one property.
Yeah.
But you were sad to leave, though.
That was cool. And then we came back, and I'm like, I need to spend this money somewhere quickly.
Because don't you have a 1031 exchange?
I could have probably 1031'd it. I wasn't really thinking at the time about that though, which was probably kind of dumb on my part. But we did end up doing a cost seg on our short-term rental that year, which helped offset that I only had to pay like a couple thousand in taxes on that money. So that was good. But
you can do cost segregation on short-term rental?
Oh, yes.
Really?
And it is super beneficial. Yep. Because you can depreciate.
So we do it on commercial properties.
So many things that you throw into this thing.
A huge amount of depreciation, but I didn't know you could do it on.
Because you're adding all of these amenities into the property as well that you can depreciate.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll give Sean
like
any
the
more
hot
ideas
tub and
not paying taxes,
other things. So it helps.
Anything I can do. Depreciation is so valuable because you're gaining equity, number one, and gaining cash flow, but then you can also reduce your taxes. It's the best thing in the world.
Yeah. So I made $100,000. I used that $100,000, threw it into the down payment and closing costs for my fourplex and duplex, and then we bought a short-term rental that year as well, and I did a cost seg on that and paid hardly anything in taxes. It was great.
So you had 2 properties out of your one sale.
Yep.
So
go ahead. So
ask your question first because mine kind of takes it back a little bit.
Okay. Well, mine does a little bit too.
Okay, well, then I'm going to go first.
What number house was it before you were able to quit your job?
That was my same question. That was my exact same question.
Okay, well,
look, great.
I think that's what
people
want to know.
I think people want to know, like, when, if I'm doing this, people who've already started, they have 1 or 2 houses. Like, when did you feel comfortable enough to say, okay, now it's time to leave the $35,000-$40,000 a year job and do this full time?
So 3.5 years ago, before I bought my first short-term rental, our conversations were, maybe I can leave my job by the time I'm 45. Maybe we'll have enough cash flow at that time. That's kind of what we were thinking. Then we bought this first short-term rental, and the game changed for us because my job, I was an account manager with Google, working on their carrier division. So I was helping sell Google Pixel phone. I loved my job. It was a lot of fun, but I was getting paid $65,000 a year. Because it was like a third-party company. Google outsources 90% of the people that they work with, and it was a third party. So like the pay just wasn't, I mean, it was enough for us to live on at the time, but we were not living on any of our cash flow. We were living only on my salary, and our goal was, when I pass my salary with our cash flow consistently, then I'll leave, because I just didn't care enough to keep building at that point. But it was like, we passed it. And it was almost a year and a half later when I left my job, because even when we did pass it, like, it's still that level of like comfortability, and you're scared. And I had to go
is this really going to work?
I went to a conference. It was a short-term rental summit by the Real Estate Robinsons. They're awesome people, but in Newport Beach. And that was at the end of 2022, before we closed on our second short-term rental, and my cash flow was dramatically past my salary, but I was using my salary to help us qualify for conventional loans. And I'm like, well, I'll get to that 10, have 10 of them at least, on conventionals. And then I'm talking with people there, and this one guy was like, dude, just leave your job, just leave it. Like, you're staying around for a loan. Like, that doesn't make any sense. He's like, when you leave your job, you're going to put 100% of your effort into your rental business instead of 30, 40, 50%. And then, the rest on that, because you're wasting all this time on your job instead of just putting it all into there. And I actually, I called my boss and put in my 2-week notice in the closing office of our second short-term rental. I was in the parking lot. I had just signed papers because I needed proof of income to qualify for the conventional loan, and I called them in the parking lot. So that was 2022. So because I already knew what the one short-term rental could do, and I expected the second one to do the same, which ended up doing a lot better. But so we had 2 short-term rentals, I guess, at that time. The second one just wasn't live yet, and then I had a fourplex, a duplex, and what was it, 3 long-term rentals. So
you're 28, 29.
I was 28.
Did that already create $1 million in equity? Like, what at what point did you
I was
cross
20.
the
I was about, I think I was 26, 27 when we had $1 million in equity. Yeah, because I mean, these houses that I bought for $130,000 and we put 10,000 into as we lived there, I mean, they're now selling for 300. So that was,
I think
helpful.
That's good for people to hear. Is he was able to, off a $35,000 a year job, I guess you ended up at 65, but 35 when you started, and you're able to grow that portfolio. And really, it's a short amount of time. I mean, it hasn't been that long.
I mean, what standard appreciation on real estate has been 3%, 4%, 5%.
I mean, a year,
depending on the area.
Per year. Yeah. So it's like you're going to get way better returns on real estate than almost any other investment out there. Like if you just bought a property, did nothing and held on to it, it would be, worth significantly more 10 years down the road. But we always buy properties where we can add sweat equity to it, because that's always our fallback. It's like, I want, to one, have good cash flow on it. And then two, I want good equity in it. That way, like, so we've got, this has just changed because we've done some stuff with our HELOC, but I want to say we have 1.3 million, 1.4 million in debt right now, which, people hear that, oh my goodness, I'm so scared of that. It's like, well, I'm not paying any of that debt. My tenants and guests are, but
you have 3 million in value, property value.
Yeah, it's like 2.9, something like that. Yeah. So it's like I have more equity than I do.
And when you're doing these terms, are you doing 30-year loans on all of them or 20-year? Or?
Yes. So I only have one 20-year loan. We did a DSCR, debt service coverage ratio loan. They're a little bit newer, I think, within the last few years, but it's specifically designed for real estate investors. If you cannot qualify for a conventional loan on an investment property, look at a DSCR.
Is the rate the same? Is the down payment the same?
The down payment is they do offer like 10% down payments, but your interest rate's significantly higher. We did a 20% down payment. Or no, because this was a cash out refi. So technically you can borrow 30% of the appraised value. Yeah. So, but if it was a new purchase, it would be 20% down. Yeah.
Okay.
The rate is about a percent and a half higher than a conventional loan. But yeah, I did a DSCR cash out refi. It basically, what they do is they don't use any tax returns. They don't use any proof of income, none of that. It's based off of the
income of the property,
what the property should make. So they'll do an appraisal, see what the property is worth. And then they'll do rent comps as well. And they'll see like what other properties in the area are renting for. And as long as they see that rental income surpassing, what your payment would be on it, then you can qualify for it that way.
Also, for people listening, when you do a refi, you pay no income tax on the money that you get back out. So if he refis his house and he gets $100,000 back, zero tax on that.
Yeah. So cash out refi. Yeah. What we did. So this was our second short-term rental. I bought this property for $160, and then I put about $50 into it for my renovations and furnishings. So I had about $210 into it. After 1 year, I did a cash out refi. The property appraised for $300, I think. So I had $90,000 in equity, from just sitting there and from the renovations that we had done to, improve the value. And I was able to borrow then $210,000, I want to say. So because of what we had paid for our down payment, I ended up getting a check for, it's like 50, 55, something like that. And then I used that 55 to then pay back my HELOC that I had borrowed initially to pay for the down payment on the property. So basically, I use this HELOC for the down payment in some furnishings or whatever, and then a year later do a cash out refi. So I make a new loan on the house. I take that money and I pay back off the HELOC. So I reduce my interest rate and my cash flow more by doing that too.
So of the 8 to 10 years that you've been doing this, what do you feel like was the biggest risk that you took? The most, I'm going to shit my pants. Is this really going to make or break me moment? When was that?
I have never really felt like that.
Not even on your first?
I don't know. I guess I felt like we were living at the bottom of the barrel anyway. So my thought process is always like, I'm going to take a calculated risk, but with buying properties that I can add equity to, my risk is less. Because I could always just resell it and make money off of it if I needed to, if I can't find a renter or whatever else. But even when I left my job, which I felt like was a huge leap, the whole first probably year almost up until 8 months ago, I was like, well, if I need to, I can just I can go get a job again, right? I can go,
I think everybody
drive
feels that
Uber
way.
Eats if it's stupid.
Yeah.
But
everybody starts rationalizing what you can do to make
But at the end of the day, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to wake up, realize that you made a big mistake, you lost some money, you go back to the same place that you're in now, right? Then, you're never going to be successful unless you take that first step of faith out and try something. I mean, I'm sure you guys are both living proof of that, right? I mean, You didn't.
But I always had that backup plan, like you said. I actually worked inside. So I used to work at Neiman Marcus, and I left. I quit because I thought I was going to be a lady who lunches for 5 minutes, and then realized I'd pull all my hair out if I do that. So about a month later, I got busy with the wedding business, which turned into the whole makeup line. And I still, at that time, felt like, what if this doesn't work out? I want to still have that backup plan. So I stayed working in the store on a daily rate, working at Neiman, Saks, all the different stores, Macy's, working for other brands until it got kind of weird, or people were like, is this your brand? I'm like, shut up, because I was representing other brands. But I always wanted to have that backup plan because I was a very safe person and not a big risk taker like him. He's balls to the wall, all in. I always wanted to have that. So I do know that feeling of having that backup plan. And I think for people who want to get into this, it's really important to do both for a long time, which is what you did. And I think it is really important, and we've talked about this in other podcasts previous to this one, is that you do the work yourself. And I know that you're not to the point where you're hiring trades to do everything. You want to have that built-in equity in there, and you still want to have that good profit margin. But if you scale, you're going to have to, at some point, start hiring people to do that, because you can't raise 4 kids, homeschool those 4 kids, manage your properties. You have 30 of them now, and then still doing all the labor. So people want to know, when is it important to start, to do it myself, when to start hiring contractors. So my next question is, if you do invest in that, I say 12th or 13th, but this may be your 18th because you flip some. When will you start hiring people to help you so you can kind of, reel back in, spend more of your time finding properties and not working for the business, but on the business?
I would say we're at a place right now where I'm content, but we're getting, I don't know. I mean, we were talking about this upstairs. Like, my wife and I, we're happy with where we are and not really doing a whole lot, but I also want to contribute things. And, I think that we're created in this world to work and to design and to create and to teach and to help and stuff, and not just go on vacations with our family. And, my first priority is my family and being there for them and training my kids and teaching my kids. But it's like, I want to help other people do the same thing. And I also want to, find fulfillment in creating a masterpiece out of an ugly property. I love that feeling. It's part of my drive. Like, just
I think that is our main drive, is not
piece
really
of
for
crap
the money you
and
make.
turning it into something
It's
that looks cool.
It's like piece of shit.
It's like, here's this house. I mean, like, our last house was run down by college kids, and it had cats in the basement. Everything smelled like urine, and we found drugs in the house, not just the conventional kind either.
The needle kind.
Yeah. There was a towel rod in the basement, hung up on the wall. We were taking it off the wall and turned it to the side, and this needle fell out. It's like, okay. And then
we found a lot of stuff like
drop
that
ceiling in the basement too. There was this box up there filled with all sorts of mementos. But it's like taking this and turning it into something that made almost $10,000 the first month that I only bought for $230,000. It's like, I mean, being able to do stuff like that gives us some drive too.
Improving the neighborhood, and you're kind of doing
exactly
everything at one time.
Yep. So I don't know. It's like, I've definitely thought about hiring some property managers. Like, right now with my software, I'm only spending a few hours a week. So
tell me about the software. What's the name of the software that you're using, and how does it manage your properties?
Yeah. So for our short-term rentals, my main software that I use is called Hospitable. So Hospitable it's called a PMS, property management software. There's a big variety of different kinds.
And this is the software that helps you work to 3 to 4 hours a week.
Yeah, so there's an app. There's an app, so I have it on my phone. I can pull it up on my computer, whatever. But basically, I sync all of my properties to it. So all of the listing platforms. So I've got a direct booking website. I've got Airbnb, and I've got VRBO.
This is great. I love that it APIs and all the stuff to one place. That's great.
Yep. So it connects it all in one place. So, like, on my website, my direct booking website, I have a widget that's supplied by Hospitable. That basically people can just, they can see my pricing and my availability, because Hospitable is syncing it through all of the all the
I have
sites.
that on my website too.
So it's wonderful. So that's probably one of the biggest things. On top of that, then, is like guest communication. I mean, they use AI and ChatGPT to respond, so I can set up different keyword triggers. So, like, if somebody asks, what is there a trick to the hot tub, or how do you run the hot tub? It'll like detect the word hot tub or whatever, and it'll send them an automatic message
it's
back.
Actually a good question is how often are you bothered when people come? And I have a question.
Yeah.
Because we had this issue last night, no power. We tried to go into an Airbnb and they didn't have power. They said they had power, they didn't have power, and we couldn't get into the keypad. So I'm like, we're calling this poor guy at 10:20 at night trying to get into his house.
I've only had like issues with the keypad a few times, and that was user error on their part or our part, where they just couldn't figure it out, or we had inputted the wrong code or something for them. But like Hospitable has options to like we use Google Locks, which they don't integrate yet, but they will hopefully soon. But where they can automatically set up the
unlock it from their phone.
Yeah, they can unlock it from their phone. Some of the locks do that, or like this one with Hospitable, basically, it knows the guest's last four of their phone number, and then their reservation date. So it'll set up the last four of their phone number for the code, and it'll activate at check-in time and deactivate at checkout time. So,
but I'm saying, like, if they're there and they can't figure out the keypad, is there a way that you could say,
yeah,
and it unlocks it so
I can
that
do
you
that
don't have to drive over there?
Yep. So I can unlock it from my phone.
Okay. So really, it's very minimal of you. It sounds of your time.
It is. Yeah, that's kind of the little things that take up some of our time, which I would say if I grow my Airbnb portfolio anymore, I will. See, I do my short-term rental portfolio
I know,
anymore.
It's Kleenex versus tissue.
That's exactly what it is. Yep. So if I grow anymore, I'll probably hire a VA, a virtual assistant, to take over some of those tasks, just so that way it doesn't get too overwhelming.
So does Hospitable send them whenever they first rent it and how to work the hot tub?
I've got everything set up. So I have an automated message sent to the guest immediately when they book. We have a rental agreement through Jot Forms that I created, so it'll send them the link for that. And then I have a message sent about a week before, and then 2 days before with the check-in instructions, so they know exactly what to do. And then the morning after they arrive, just making sure everything's good. So all of these are automated along the way, and then even review request after they leave, all of those things. So all of that's automated, even cleaner schedules. So if a guest books a property, I have different cleaners assigned to different properties.
That's what I was going to ask you. How you
it'll send
that?
our cleaner a text message and an email, and then it'll send them emails the week of.
So they work on contract, or are they employees? Like a pay per house kind of thing, or do you pay them like a salary?
Yeah, we pay them per house. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's much better too, because if you have a slow season, then you're not paying a salary, so that's good.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if they have a shared app where they're able to see the schedule and then just know which rooms to clean.
Yeah, so we get their email into Hospitable, and then it'll email them. That also has an iCal link, so they can add it to their Apple Calendar, Google Calendar, and it shows it on their calendar form too. Yep.
Super efficient.
Yeah,
like that.
So that takes away probably 90% of the work that we would have to do on our own otherwise. And then I use a software called Price Labs, and they are a dynamic pricing software. So they are looking at
shopping around all the neighbors,
competitive prices and demand for specific dates, and they update our prices every 24 hours.
Okay, that's another really good one too, because I'm like, how do you know if there's like a concert in the area? Or
something? Like I wouldn't, and that would drive me crazy. I mean,
yeah.
that would take, I don't even know how many hours each day you'd have to be looking at stuff. When we first started out, I priced our first property at $180 a night, and I let it run like that for the first 2 months before I tried out Price Labs, and it started throwing stuff like $500, $600, $700 for some nights, and people were booking them. And I'm like, what in the world? It's only like $20 a month for one property and $30 for two. So
that's absolutely
40 for three.
One night.
Yeah, it's like I have bookings.
So does it use analytics and it just checks like if people are just a ton of
so it's looking like if there's been a lot of people looking at certain dates for whatever, they'll increase the prices of those dates. You can set it up based off like it'll give you like a suggested average price based off of your property size and the neighborhood that it's in. And then you can set minimum prices or maximum prices if you want to. I have minimums, but I don't ever do maximums. But like we had 3 people check in yesterday. So all 3 of our houses had a check in yesterday, and all the bookings are, I think 3 nights each. We do 3-night minimums on the weekends.
I was just about to ask about that.
Only on the weekends we do 3-night minimums, but I gotta.
So it's not worth for you to turn it over.
Yeah,
for
you get paid out from Airbnb the day after check-in. I got an email today. It was almost $5,000 that I got from the 3 properties, and they each paying, because summer is the hot month. Hot months there, like June, July, August are kind of our 3 most popular. Those are big money making months. But I mean they were paying, $400 or $500 a night. And I would have never known to price them like that.
You almost have to have that to maximize the value over the entire year.
Yeah. Amazing.
$100 here, $100 there adds up at the end of the year a ton.
I would say we make over $10,000 more
the name of that
per year than Price Labs.
Price Labs.
Yep. AirDNA also offers dynamic pricing features now too. I haven't explored as much with them yet, but Price Labs is.
So all these extra plugins, what are they costing you per month?
Hospitable, I pay $40 a month for across 3 properties. They're very reasonably priced, $40 total.
And the other one per property.
Price Labs is either $30 or $40 total.
See, that sounds pretty reasonable too, for the amount of extra income that you can make. We're investing in some boutique hotels and stuff.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
you need to know about this software.
Yeah,
we know nothing about the hotel industry.
Yeah. Now I know with boutique hotels there is like specific boutique hotel PMS stuff that you can use. Like Hospitable would not be the one to use for that, but they have some buddies of mine just bought a boutique hotel in Fish Creek.
Yeah, these are small town.
Yeah,
like Door County, like roadway inns kind of thing, and buying them up and making them like kind of a trendy little spot.
Nice.
We'll see. I'm not the one doing it. We have a really amazing girl that's and really artistic girl that has done one and on her second one, and so we're investing with her. And so I'm
excited. I love
she has an amazing program. I'll show it to you after this.
Yeah. See, I feel like the place for me, like to answer your question too, like when would I hire property managers? Where would I go with that? Like, I really want to try, especially when my kids are younger, to prioritize them in my time with them, and being able to travel with them. But I'd love to get to a point, where you have the team and stuff. But I feel like there's this really, really difficult part between being where I'm at right now and not needing to work a lot versus being where you are and being able to hopefully be more hands-off, I'm assuming, like you can, because you have the team in place.
No, he's hands-on. Don't let him fool you. He's 110 hours a week. He doesn't shut the
fuck
fuck up.
But he could be, right? I mean, because you have the team. Probably. You could be if you delegated, whatever, where you have that.
What he does is he buys something and he's like, okay, good luck with that buy. I'm going to go work on something else. He's got to always be every week investing in something.
But it's by choice, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of it's by choice.
He's obsessed.
But now I have the right. But I don't just see you later buy. Like I have the right team in place. I know I cannot buy something and it take a bunch of my time because it will not work out.
This is what he always says down. What I've learned through running businesses is you can't do it all yourself if you want to scale, and you got to hire the right team from the very beginning. You got to pay them really well. You can't skimp on your labor. You got to pay them the right price, so that way they can perform and be self-managing, so you can move on to the next thing. So that's what he does.
Yeah. So it's been amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, maybe someday when I grow up, I'll be
I made him pinky promise me because we had 2 house projects going on for 2 years. And I said, we got to like a point where we don't fight in our relationship, and we were fighting. I was getting on his nerves for one of the first times I think ever in our relationship. Was imperfect, but I was really getting on his nerves, and he was really getting on mine. And I was like, okay, listen, you aren't allowed to buy one more fucking thing. And I don't ever want to hold him back, but I'm like, pinky promise me no more houses until you get the 2 that we're living in.
It didn't work out.
Done. He goes, fuck, I'm closing on one tomorrow. I'm like,
a building.
I hate you. I was like, because it was like sharing contractors, and we're not doing anything ourselves anymore, and it's shifting things around and just making.
I will admit, I put priority on stuff that's going to make me money over our personal house, and so it drug it out. Yeah. It drug it out a little longer than it should have.
We're living in a hotel for 8 months.
Your 4 kids that you homeschool, have you been teaching them the property, about all the properties, about the
okay, yeah, so when we started investing, when we started having kids while we were investing, we made the decision together that this was not going to be something where she was going to be like and this wasn't really me saying this as much as her though too, because like she grew up with her parents rehabbing houses and flipping stuff. So she grew up,
That's cool.
picking up shingles off the ground and throwing them in trash cans and, living
helping out the job site, stepping on nails.
So she's like, it's not gonna be something where just I go and work on houses and, she stays home with the kids. This is gonna be a family thing. Yeah. So every house that we've worked on, we've done together. I mean, we lived in them and then we, worked at them while, I worked my job. So I'd get off work, we'd go over there, or maybe she'd be there working on it while I was at work some days, depending on what kind of timeline we were working on. But, this last one was probably the most challenging because we've got an 11-month-old right now. So he's crawling around and we're trying to put up, trash cans and baby gates and different rooms. And, I don't have carpet in the room and trying to like figure out like that was more challenging. But there's been plenty of times where I've got to pack and play in a closet in some back bedroom somewhere. And he's, like that's just what we did. And, put the kids down there at night and we're grouting tile at 1 a.m. just because that's the time that we had to do it. We did not do that on this last house because we didn't have to work as fast, but we probably did 10-hour days, 7 days a week there because we wanted to get it up and going because it's peak time there right now.
So no time to be running kids to and from school.
I've got my kids helping, paint things.
Yeah,
and,
that's awesome. You're teaching them that.
Take off light switch covers and pick up trash and, build the deck and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, like they're learning how to do this stuff and they enjoy it. They love helping. So
when do you have time for the school portion of it?
So with this last house, we would typically drive in separate. So my wife kind of leads up the schooling right now when the kids are younger. Our plan is for me to be a lot more involved as they're older, but she leads up the stuff right now because we're 7, just turned 6, and then the 3-year-old is starting to do some little things, but it's not tons and tons of stuff right now. So typically school takes 2 hours, maybe 3 each day. I would say usually max 2. But yeah, she'll do it right after breakfast. So we'd wake up, have breakfast together. She'd start on school with the kids. I'd go to the house, start working on stuff, and then she'd come
after lunch.
Yeah, right after lunch, and then be there for 5-6 hours, and then we go home and have dinner home. Yep.
That's great. We really want Liam to learn like that as well.
Yep.
So we kind of gone back and forth about it's just a rat race around here to try to get into a private school, which is kind of what you have to do, like inner city where we're at, unless you move out to the burbs. It's just really hard with the public schools here. So it's kind of like you either are fighting for the 30 people they pick for that grade every year, and then chances are, since we didn't come from money, we're not going to get in. And we kind of went through that with even preschools with him. But we do have a very good elementary school that's public, that's zoned to where we're at. That's where he's going to go. But we're like, after that, what do we really want to do?
Yeah.
We want the flexibility to be able to travel and move around. But we feel like, and me, as time goes by, I start feeling more like Sean does, is the education system, it just has kind of failed us. And we want our kids to be entrepreneurs like us and be able to take over our businesses and learn real life stuff, like the ethic and hard work that you and your wife put into this, and seeing you guys work that way will instill that in them too, and whatever they want to do.
I think it's just a traditional system. The way that the technology is going now, it's almost like it's so outdated, and they just don't need to go there anymore. No. I just don't even think I think you're going to end up holding them back. His first job,
2-3 hours a day, and it's equivalent to 6 hours, 7 hours at public school.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But his first job was sales, which I think is actually a really good skill for anybody that's going to be in any business or do anything on their own.
Basic platform for someone to
just
learn
like
from.
Buying and selling something and talking to people and communication. So like sales, communication, a little bit of leadership, and then a little bit of the way money works, like financial, just basic stuff, and they'll be successful in whatever they end up. Trying to do.
Yeah, we're teaching them about money, with stuff right now. Like, some people might be like, "Why do you talk with your kid about this?" But like my 7-year-old, she's almost 8, and like last night, my wife and I were do you guys have Menards around here? You know what that is?
I've heard of it.
Lowe's, Home Depot, right?
Okay, no, we don't have.
Yeah,
we have Lowe's.
Okay, Lowe's and Home Depot.
Lowe's and Home Depot is more nationally recognized, but Menards is maybe more regional. Anyway, same thing. They have this deck builder tool on their website, and it's a basic deck that we're going to build on the back of our house. I think it's 50 foot by 14 feet, whatever. But we're putting this together last night, designing it out the way we want. It'll deliver all the materials to us a couple of days. But like, we printed off the stuff, and I took photos of it. And this morning, I'm showing my kids like, hey, we're going to be building this.
That is so awesome. IKEA has that too. I think that's so cool to have a project with them like that.
Yeah. So I'm like, we're going to build this. You guys can help with some of these things. Like, I'm talking with my oldest daughter. My youngest daughter is starting to learn more about money, but my oldest daughter, I'm like, this is how much it cost. Like, this is what we had to pay for this. And this is why we did not do it, a long time ago. Because that was the question. Like, why are we doing this now? It's like, well, we had to save up a little bit to do this and to order it because, this is how much money it was. And for her, it's just like, it's good for her to have that comprehension of like, okay, like saving and investing or
what it would have cost if you had hired someone.
Yes, exactly. So
and what value it's going to create if you
exactly, it creates that value for her, that understanding of the cost behind it too, and they learn through that, and she'll get to help me, put some deck boards down and some of those things too, and she, get to have fun doing that.
So I know that you've made it pretty big on TikTok, and I know you're just starting to get into Instagram. Tell me what you feel like helped push. I don't know how long you've been on TikTok. What helped you push you to those really big numbers? How did you get there? Was it consistent content? And what kind of content really works for you?
So I started doing social media when I created an account, I think, before I officially left my job. But when I left my job, I got more serious about it because was actually a bet with my brother-in-law that you could not monetize social media, and you can actually monetize it. And
I just found out today that TikTok pays, and I didn't know that.
I'll make more on social media this year than I made with my salary for my last job. So, you can definitely make money from social media.
How do you monetize? You told me some of the tips and like thresholds you have to get to on TikTok.
Views pays a lot through TikTok. I made $4,500 just last month just from people watching the stuff, not even buying anything.
But you have to have at least 10,000 followers, and you apply for it after that?
Yeah, so you can there's like different types of programs. Some that are, you get paid a certain amount for videos less than a minute. I'm on a program, the Creativity Fund or Creator Fund or something like that. And I get paid on videos longer than 1 minute in length. If it's less than a minute, I get nothing. If it's more than a minute, it's like $700, $800 per million views. So,
wow.
But
it's hard to get a lot of views on over a minute content, don't you think?
Not really. Like for me, I mean, I put a video on yesterday about we had a guest that left their iPhone at one of our houses, and I
was waiting to see. I was like, is he gonna pay for it or not?
Well, this afternoon it was like 70,000 or whatever, which isn't like viral necessarily, but it's still halfway decent for just a very simple video that I didn't do any editing to.
How long was it?
Over a minute. Pretty much everything I posted.
It was like a minute. It was right over a minute. It wasn't.
Yeah,
long,
pretty much everything I post is at least a minute. Yeah, I'll make sure that I get there. So I'm
personally,
long-winded enough. So I
with
can.
Me personally, I feel like as we do videos every Tuesday, we do content. My short videos get more views. If it's like 15 to 30 seconds, it gets more views. When I start getting too long-winded, it gets into the 2 minute, 3 minute. I don't get as many views.
So like to answer your question with how I built the following and stuff, it was honestly just being genuine and showing people our journey. Whenever we're working on a project or working on a house or whatever, I'll take my phone out and I just take little clips here and there, and then either talk behind it and add overlays or whatever else. And
Sean does not do this for his properties. He's just now starting. I'm like, you need to post your before
and after.
But like people just want to see
for
that stuff.
The last 20 years,
who doesn't have a before and after?
Like telling people, it's like 9 years ago I was making $35,000 a year as a cell phone rep at a Sprint store. It's like in this year, I'll make $350, and
then they're being like, follow. I want to know how.
Being able to 10x your income in 9 years, and I don't even have a job anymore, really. I mean, I do, but I don't. And having that financial freedom, and just sharing how we got to that point. People seeing, like you mentioned that video where I was talking about people having these fancy cars and flashy things, and I feel like you see a lot of influencers just trying to show off their stuff, but not show off.
But the stuff is what gets them followers too, though.
Their heart behind it, and
it does, because people see it and they think, oh, he's got these fancy things, he must be really successful, he's interesting, I want to follow. So both ways sell.
They do,
right? But
they do.
But the avenue that you've taken is I want to be more real.
But the
That's
education
more like,
and value, the value-driven stuff is always going to be the best stuff.
Yeah.
That's like you're helping someone out, you're giving them information.
Oh yeah,
he can spell out what he did from start to finish, and then create a ton of value for all these people that are listening, and then also keep them from making mistakes, right? Like these people are watching, okay, I don't want to make the same mistake
he did on the short term. That's the most valuable
Exactly.
thing about social media and YouTube is that you can cut all the corners.
There's so much stuff on YouTube now, you're like, okay.
I just, like, I don't want to compromise who I am by just showing off flashy stuff, if that makes sense, because it's like, I mean, items are fleeting, things are fleeting, but like who you are and the impact you make on the world, is something that you can leave a legacy behind. So I think people could just see the genuineness of me, and some of my videos, might seem boastful or whatever. I try not to be, and just show like, this is what you can make. Like, this is like, I mean, I'm sure you've had plenty of those deals. It's like, I never knew what kind of money was available out there in the world, how much money there was to be made until I actually started, doing my own thing, because everybody's just so, you're programmed through school and other things to
get a job,
to to go to college, to get a degree, to go work for somebody else, and you get paid a fraction of what they're making off of you, and you're filling somebody else's pocket until you're 65, and then you can hopefully retire. Hopefully you've invested money into a Roth IRA or 401k, and then hopefully you have enough money to last you until you're completely dead. The average life expectancy of a male is 74 in America right now. So what, you have 9 years, probably not healthy years, to enjoy the money that you've saved all of your life for. Like, it's screwed up, and
you're trading your time for money.
It's like,
so there's always a cap, right?
And I want people to see that, like, you can do this. You can, like, use your weekends and evenings to build the life you want, not escape the life you have. We talked about that on the car ride over here. I'm like,
so that's why we started the podcast. Is to bring people like you on to share your story, to hopefully teach people, and hopefully can learn.
I think your story sounds achievable for most people, right?
Yeah,
It
is.
Like when we have podcasts with some of these people, which they've been wildly successful, some of his partners that have 200 properties, it's intimidating for someone to hear that. They're like, wow, that's so cool. I want to be there one day, but there's no way I could do that. Yeah. Sharing your story, being a guy who was making $35,000 when you bought your first house, to then $65,000, to then leaving your job because you were matching that and then doubling that.
Yeah.
It's inspirational for someone who wants to get into it, that doesn't feel like, I don't have enough money, I don't know how to get a loan. So I was asking a lot of questions about the loans, because it's like, maybe they haven't bought their first. Is an FHA best for them? Is this new type of loan, the N something you said, the best way for them to go? What's it called? N what? Nova? You said there was a new loan program for investors.
A DSCR.
DSCR.
Debt Service Coverage Ratio loan. Yeah.
But what's the best avenue for someone, who's wanting to get into this, and how much would they really need? I mean, what's the goal number for them to set aside? And can they do it themselves if they don't have? All of those, answering all of those questions, I think really helps inspire and push someone to, get past the finish line on purchasing that first property, especially the fact that you were 21 years old when you first did it.
Yeah. And I think we were talking about it a little bit upstairs, but I put a course together too. And that was kind of the main reason why. Like, I've never really been the type of guy to try and push selling something through social media. And I still really don't push it very much anyway. But I was invited by the homeboys to create a course with them, and it's, they got the similar mindset, like help regular people achieve financial freedom through investing in real estate. And we talk through all of that stuff in detail too, but I'll talk through it through some of my videos, or just show real life situations, horror stories for Airbnbs or whatever else. But yeah, so I mean, it's totally achievable.
So if somebody does want to learn from you, do you have courses set up now, or was that a one-time thing?
Yep, I do.
I do.
Courses? So rental.cashflow on Instagram or TikTok. TikTok is where I put most of my stuff, but rental.cashflow, Matt Kruger.
Is there a website too? Or they just connect through
through TikTok? I use a Stan Store, which is a link on my social media pages, and I've got a few different like free resources in there, and then there's a course there as well. I want to say it's like $70 is what we charge for it, but it's like
very affordable.
Three and a half hours, of interactive stuff with worksheets and budget calculators and everything else. And we talk through all the different types of loan programs, like
That's
from looking for a property to the how you can get approved for it, to how to renovate it, to how to rent it, all of the things.
Listen, even if it's only a tiny nugget, every nugget of information that someone can get from a different mentor. And someone they can talk to directly to if they have questions is definitely valuable.
And I answer those DMs as much as I can, so I try.
Yeah, we know.
I answered yours.
Thought we were a bunch of weirdos at first. It's like, who's these little weirdos with only 2,000 followers?
I was like, to my wife, I'm like, well, they're bringing me out there. It's like I could be going to get murdered, or this could be fun. Like, who knows? Like, they seem like cool people. So
when he gets here, I'm like, get down in the basement, put some lotion on your skin.
Yeah, no, that's why we follow you though, for all the information.
Sure.
Even as many properties I've done, I don't know a lot about short-term rentals, so I'm always looking at all the videos.
Yeah, you open up a can of worms with this one. You give him some ideas. Sean's going to be online looking for some short-term rentals.
Say when, and we'll just meet out at your lake house, and I'll tell you anything you want to know. So.
All right, sweet.
Free.
Yeah, he knows where to find the deals. He can help you find the deals if you help him get set up.
I'm in Texas. I pretty much know all the markets, but haven't dove into the short-term rental thing yet. Maybe one day.
And that's why, that's another great thing about like we talked about social media. I go to conferences as well. I try to go to different real estate investing conferences. I've gone to different short-term rental stuff.
What is the best ones that you
So I did go to BPCon, Bigger Pockets conference in Orlando this last year. That was good. There was a lot. I mean, like for new investors, it's excellent. For me, I went for the networking. For short-term rental stuff, VRMA, Vacation Rental Management Association, that's happening in Phoenix in October. I'll be there. Again, that's mostly for networking, but there's a lot of great speakers that, just a well of info.
People always ask me where to start, not even on the real estate, even on the makeup side. How did you start your own makeup line? The best way is on Google. Googling, companies, manufacturers of makeup, but going to the conference and it's so overwhelming, especially with the makeup ones that we go to, because it's like, what's the one called? Mandalay Bay, and they just tear down all the walls, and the room has like 40,000 booths. You could just see the numbers, and it's just like, where the hell do I start? But going to every booth and talking to people and just learning, just getting in there, just figuring it out. Again, little nuggets of information and everything that you do, but I think those conferences are very, very helpful.
No matter what you do, you're never going to know everything. And, for me, like building some of the relationship that I have through going to these conferences. Like I've got a group of guys now that live in Wisconsin that I met at my first short-term rental conference, and we communicate multiple times a week. We get together on a Zoom call. We did that a few months ago. We're going to try and do a quarterly. Didn't really happen second quarter, but try to get together
learn
and
from
just
each other.
Yeah, it's like, here's our goals for the year. This is what we're trying to accomplish, and we all have very similar mindsets, so it helps.
And also learning about new software that you didn't know was
yeah,
available.
exactly,
or
exactly, and building those connections. And maybe somebody has a great lender that they're working with, or a way to get cash on a deal or something, or go together on something. So I mean, two of these guys just bought a boutique hotel together. So yeah.
You also mentioned some Facebook groups. I mean, people here in Houston, I know in the suburbs they do. They don't really use a lot of Facebook. Yeah. What kind of groups or what platform is this on? Real estate.
Short-term rental one that I like is STR Wealth. Bill Faith. What
is that on?
Facebook. STR Wealth is the name of the group. But that one, Bill Faith runs that, and he's the founder of the short-term rental wealth conference, which they've done the last 3 years, I think, in a row.
So that's a free, great starting place to kind of just listen in to people's questions and answers.
Oh yeah,
I'm a comment reader, so I learned so much from the comments.
Yeah.
But getting in there and really taking
there's a
time
lot of interesting questions in there, about random stuff, but there's good resources there too. So yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you coming out.
Yeah.
I know we've been going for like an hour and a half. We don't want to wear you out too much. Plus, we're all hungry.
No, it's
but
fine.
I know that it was an obstacle with the hurricane and then the flight. So we really do appreciate you.
I'm glad this worked out. So I don't know. A few hours ago, I was thinking I was going to spend the night in Dallas. So I'm glad I didn't have to do that.
We're way
I wasn't
cooler
gonna
than Dallas.
I wasn't going to let that happen. I was like, we're going to go get him, or we're not going to let him sit in Dallas.
I got to spend a couple hours at the Capital One Lounge in Dallas. It's my favorite airport because it's I think Denver and Dallas are the only two airports that have that. But if you're a Capital One Venture X holder, you get to go there for free. So I took a shower there, and
thank God,
got a nice lunch, and
I'll be the smelliest one in this room right now.
it's a good place. So.
Well, thanks again, and I'll be following along on TikTok. I'm not a big TikTok user, but I heard you're big over there, so I'll go watch and see your content, and I will learn some things from it too. And maybe next time we catch up with you, we'll both be doing short-term stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me out here, guys.
Thank you.